Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to the new faces, soon to be new friends. Norm, I just had a question for Norm Gray. Rabbi Solis said that you just celebrated your 66th wedding anniversary. Is that true? Did Mrs. Gray celebrate also? All right, let's get started. We have a lot of material to cover today. Today is part 3 of Have We Been Here Before? The first week, we asked one question. Does Judaism teach reincarnation? And the answer was yes. It's hidden in plain sight in our own prayer book. Then last week we asked, what is it that returns? And we learned the central teaching of Jewish mysticism on this subject. Souls are not recycled per se. New souls carry old sparks. And the sparks come back looking for completion. Today we ask the question that every one of you has been quietly asking since the bedtime prayer on the first day of class. The question every honest person eventually gets to is, who was I? I want to tell you something that may surprise you. The Kabbalists, who taught us everything that we've learned, they tell us, that's the wrong question. Or more precisely, they tell us it's a question we cannot answer. But they tell us there's a better question, and one that can be answered. Not who was I, but who am I? And what am I here to do? That's the question we're going to spend today on. And I think you'll find that the answer is hidden in plain sight inside your own life. There's a teaching from Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. He's known as the Ramak, 16th century Kabbalist. He taught in Sfat alongside the Arizal. You can read along in source 7 in your handout. I'll read it out loud for us. He says it is impossible to deduce or intuit whether one possesses a reincarnated soul unless one is the recipient of a heavenly communication regarding this. You may wonder, how then will a person know which mitzvah to be especially careful with, or which transgression to be especially guarded against? The answer is that the signs are placed within us. The mitzvah towards which a person feels deep longing and desire, that's the mitzvah they were sent to fulfill. And the transgression towards which the inclination pulls with particular intensity, this is the failure of a previous lifetime. Let's slow down what the Ramak just said. He says it's impossible to deduce or intuit whether one possesses an incarnated soul unless one is the recipient of heavenly communication regarding the same. In other words, you cannot know who you were. If you walked in today hoping that the rabbi was going to tell you that you used to be a Spanish exile or a chassid in Mizrich or a water carrier in Vilna, sorry, I can't do that. Nobody can. Unless you're the rare recipient of a divine communication, which is exceedingly rare, the door to the past is closed. If I stopped right here, I'd be telling you the most disappointing thing. 3 weeks of class, and the answer to the personal question is you can't know. But the Ramak, thankfully, doesn't stop there. He closes one door, he immediately opens another door. He says, you may wonder, how then will a person know which mitzvah to be especially careful with or which transgression to be especially guarded against? The answer is that the signs are placed within us. The signs are placed within us. Not in the books, not in past life regression, not in genealogical research, rather within us. In how we are built, in what we long for, in what trips us up. And the Ramak gives us 2 specific signs. First, says the Ramak, the mitzvah towards which a person feels deep longing and desire, like giving charity to the Atlanta Torah Center, for example, that mitzvah. Whatever one feels a longing and desire for, that's the mitzvah they were sent to fulfill. The thing that pulls you, the kind of work in the world that quietly attracts you when you read about people who are doing it. The kind of giving you find yourself drawn to when you don't even fully know why. The book you keep returning to. The cause that won't let you alone. The neighbor whose situation keeps showing up in your thoughts when you're trying to fall asleep. The Ramak says, that's not random. That pull is the shape of your life's mission. That's the spark you came down here to bring home. And the second sign, which is harder to hear, but just as important, the transgression towards which the inclination pulls with particular intensity, that is the failure of a previous lifetime. The thing that keeps tripping you up, the same mistake over and over through the years. The temper you can't quite contain, the dishonesty that creeps in when you're under pressure, the selfishness you keep trying to outgrow and never fully do. The Ramak is saying that's not random. The difficulty is actually a sign. It's the address of the unfinished work that you carry. And whether you bring it all home this lifetime or some other lifetime, it's yours. It's yours to bring. The pull and the resistance, 2 ends of the same map. Comments? Questions? So I want to share with you something extraordinary. This is not a Kabbalistic text from the 16th century. This is a letter written in the 1950s by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, to a man who had written to him about his marriage. Parenthetically, the Rebbe received tens of thousands of letters in his lifetime. He answered as many as he could. This particular man had written the Rebbe complaining. His marriage was difficult. He had been doing the things that the Rebbe had advised him to do, studying Torah, giving charity, but the situation at home hadn't really improved. It was superficial peace, but underneath, still struggling. And the Rebbe wrote back as follows. You can look at source 8 or read it later. I'll read it out loud to us now. The Rebbe says to this man with marriage difficulty, I am replying to your letter in which you inform me that you accepted and are implementing my directives regarding Torah study and giving charity. But as far as the situation at home is concerned, your marital harmony appears only superficially to have improved, while the underlying reality remains unsatisfactory. I already told you in the previous letters that it would be challenging. You are meant to find it difficult, for the success of your life's mission hinges upon your sincere efforts towards marital harmony. Our mystical teachings reveal that rare individuals are born with original souls. The rest of us are reincarnations. We return to complete the fulfillment of the mitzvot that we missed in previous lifetimes. Certainly, we are obligated in all the mitzvot in every lifetime, but the specific mitzvot we omitted in earlier incarnations are critical to the rectification of our souls and the rectification of this world. Using the evil inclination as a guide, we can identify the mitzvot that determine the outcome of our life's mission. Our inclination opposes the mitzvot we already finalized in previous lifetimes only to the degree necessary to create free choice between good and evil. By contrast, it unleashes a fierce storm of opposition with countless hurdles and challenges when we approach a mitzvah we failed to fulfill in previous incarnations. Therefore, says the Rebbe, your many hurdles to marital harmony reveal its indispensability to your rectification. Do whatever it takes to achieve harmony. I want to say a few things about the letter. First, notice what the Rebbe does not say. He doesn't say, hang in there, things are going to get better. He doesn't say, have you tried marriage counseling? He doesn't even say, keep doing the mitzvah, eventually peace will come. He says something almost nobody would think to say. He says, I already told you this was going to be challenging. You are meant to find it difficult. Listen to that. You're meant to find it difficult. The Rebbe is saying the difficulty is not a sign that you're in the wrong marriage. The difficulty is a sign that you're in exactly the right marriage. Because the difficulty is the address of the work you came here to do. And then he explains why. He says, our mystical teachings reveal that rare individuals are born with original souls. The rest of us are reincarnations. We return to complete the fulfillment of the mitzvot we missed in previous lifetimes. Most of us, the Rebbe says, are not new students starting fresh. Most of us are returning students with unfinished work from before. And then the most extraordinary part, using the evil inclination as a guide, we can identify the mitzvot that determine the outcome of our life's mission. Our inclination opposes the mitzvot we already finalized in previous lifetimes, only to the degree necessary to create free choice between good and evil. By contrast, Rebbe says it unleashes a fierce storm of opposition with countless hurdles and challenges when we approach a mitzvah we failed to fulfill in previous incarnations. The resistance you feel towards most things in your life is calibrated. Just enough resistance to make every choice meaningful. Not so much resistance that the choice becomes impossible. That's the normal setting. But once in a while, you bump up against something where the resistance is huge, not proportionate, not normal. A wall that keeps showing up in your life that you can't seem to walk around. that tires you out just thinking about it. That, says the Rebbe, is the address of an unfinished mitzvah from a previous lifetime. Your soul returned to this world specifically to do that thing. And the resistance is so loud because the stakes for you, for your soul, for the cosmos are that high. And then the Rebbe closes by saying, therefore, your many hurdles to marital harmony reveal its indispensability to your rectification. Do whatever it takes to achieve harmony. Notice, the Rebbe doesn't promise the man that marriage will become easy. He doesn't promise the work will pay off. He doesn't even promise that this is the man's only mission. He just tells him that difficulty itself is the meaning. The fact that this thing won't leave you alone is the proof that you're standing in front of exactly the right door. Okay, now that I've elevated everyone's mood, does anyone have a question, a comment, a criticism? Toba.
I understand what you said, but I may not understand what a new soul is, because this sounds like it's the old soul. It's from a previous lifetime, it's this soul. But you said you get a new soul. And are the sparks from the new soul or the old soul or from someone else's soul?
So as we just, thank you for the question, Toba, because I think a lot of other people probably have the same question. What's a new soul? What's an old soul in this context? For all but a very few of us, we all have been here before. To the extent that we have, those missions that we have not checked off, those mitzvot that we have not fulfilled, they dupe you into thinking there's only 613. There's more like 613 million, by the way. To the extent to which we did not fulfill specific mitzvot, it isn't as though the same soul comes back down. Rather, as a soul comes back down, aspects of the unfinished business in your soul get grafted onto the soul that comes down. So it is, for our intent and purposes, a new soul that contains the sparks of your old soul that get grafted onto that soul as they come down. Gail.
Okay, so taking what you're saying, you know, everybody here probably is an ancestry nut, to some extent, and maybe they're not, but that's okay. And so you learn about the wisdom of people who lived before us in our lives. It could be a parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be. You remind me of so much of your grandmother in the way that you say that you act. The question is, based on what you're, discussing, could you inherit someone else's soul?
There are certainly aspects of the soul that will remind you of people of previous generations. The grandmother that the grandchild reminds you of could very well have components of her grandmother in her.
Oh, so you can inherit something of the soul of another person's soul.
Yes.
Of unfinished business or whatever it is.
Yes. Craig.
What's guiding? Is it our bodies that are guiding the soul to perform the mitzvah? Which comes first? I mean, which is guiding which to perform the mitzvah?
The soul is steering the body. The soul is the rider, the body is the horse. It's the soul that animates the body. Therefore, after 120 years, the soul separates from the body because the body is no longer functioning. The body decomposes. It's a holy vessel, but it's a vessel. The soul elevates. Eric.
With one soul, let's say, for one body,
Yes, Jews believe in reincarnation.
So my question is, when there's more and more people that are coming into the world, are there more and more souls being created to, educate reincarnate?
I can only speak from a Jewish context because Christianity, Islam, certainly the Eastern religions all believe differently. So this conversation isn't relevant for a practicing Christian because they don't believe in reincarnation. They believe in eternal heaven, eternal hell. So I can only speak about Jewish souls in this context. In this context, there are 600,000 root Jewish souls. There's a population of 15 million. Those 600,000 roots, if you will, have branches, which have branches, which have branches. And when we are sitting, when Kunkus and I, after 120, are drinking pina coladas under a palm tree up there, and Kunkus gets a tap on the shoulder, hey buddy, time to ride the next elevator down, then whatever unfinished business he has, hard to believe he would have any, but any unfinished business he has will come down into a new root and manifest in a new soul, in a new body. Chinese? I'd like to remind Dr. Kunkus and the rest of you here that I tell the jokes around here.
Is the brain, the consciousness, the subconscious part of our physical body or our soul?
Greg is asking the question, what is the seat of the soul? Is it in the brain? Where is it? And the best that we can do to answer the question is to say that the seat of the soul is in fact the brain in a general sense, but the powers of the soul then animate everything else in the body. So there's one soul, and yet as that soul travels into your pinky toe, when you wiggle your pinky toe, it's a message from the brain. It's a message from the general soul. Pretty wild, huh? Ellen. Well, we're talking about a spiritual entity, so I can't say that you can locate it between the frontal cortex and here and there. Okay, let me say it a different. Let me say it a different way. We see through our eyes. We see through our eyeballs. It is not the eyeball that gives you the power of sight. The soul. Oh, here. I got a trained professional telling me I'm correct. Excellent. Excellent. You don't have to believe the rabbi. You Perfect. Perfect. Wow. So it is the soul that gives the power of sight to a vessel called the eyeball. You don't have to, or you don't get to. Theoretically, yes. When souls are complete, then they get to sit in the orchestra section upstairs. Jay. How do you what? I don't know because a brand new soul, I can't think of more than a handful that I'm aware of in the last 3,338 years. So I don't know that really we see that we're privy to any new souls. Dr. Paul.
So I go to the metaphor of
soul, whatever that is, so it's software in the body and hardware. So the question now is somebody who has brain death by brain criteria, I think is the legal term in Israel, when the brain is no longer working, we're assuming the soul has departed, because this became the issue when they tried to make a determination about death or organ donation. And they have to presume, from Jewish perspective, that the soul is departed, even though we're still kind of making it. Do we assume that the loss of the brain is in fact a departure?
Uncategorically, no. No, we believe not only is that not the case, we believe that even after death, a certain aspect of the soul continues to hover above the body. Somewhat disoriented, because it's spent, yes, it's spent the last 70 to 120 years hanging out with a body. All of a sudden it's taken away from it. It's confusing. There are different levels to the soul in Hasidic thought, 5 levels specifically, and those levels ascend in order sequentially. Mark.
Kind of question though, may sound stupid. Do we believe in that we have sparks from soul previous life? Do we believe that only one soul has existed before, and that soul is what becomes our being? Or do we believe, I'm thinking towards the sparks, that our existing soul, our current soul, is actually patchwork built? Sparks here and there.
That's a great description. Yes, the latter. Yeah, for sure. I know there's more questions, but this is really juicy stuff. So we'll come back to these questions if you want to stay on, but let's move on to the next section. Everything that we've talked about until now is somewhat internal. The pull that you feel towards a mitzvah, the resistance of the temptation, the difficulty, God forbid, in the marriage. All of these things require us to look inward and read what's happening inside our lives. But there's another sign that the Kabbalists give us. One where we don't have to look inside of ourselves to find it, because it's not inside of us, it's around us. I'm going to read you from Hayom Yom, which is a daily devotional that was written down by the Rebbe. And these are thoughts and sayings from both his father-in-law and his uncle, both the Rebbe Rashab and the Rebbe Rayatz. He says as follows. You can look at source 9. From the moment that the Holy One, blessed be He, said to our father Abraham, go forth from your land, then begin the order of the unfolding of Jewish souls in the world in different places to elevate the holy sparks belonging to their root. The places a person travels to in the course of their life and the situations that come before them are not happenstance. Divine providence accompanies them and leads them to the very sparks of their soul that they were sent to gather. Listen carefully, because it changes how we read the ordinary geography in our own lives. The places that you travel to, the situations that you find yourself in, says the Rebbe Rashab, are not happenstance. They're not coincidence. They're not just about how life worked out for you. They are led. Divine providence steers a person towards the very sparks their soul came down here to gather. Let's make this concrete. Think about where you live. Think about the street you live on, the neighbors who happen to be your neighbors, the work that you do or that you did. Not the work you wish you did, the work you actually did or do, the work that keeps finding you. Think about the people who keep needing things from you. The cousin who calls, the friend who texts you at midnight, the person at the office who only seems to listen to you. Think about the community you find yourself in, the synagogue you go to. Or if you're Jewish, the synagogue you never go to. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The classes you end up taking, including this class. The Rebbe Rashab is telling us none of this is random. Your geography is part of your assignment. The shape of your life is the shape of your mission. And if you want to know what your soul is here for, you can look inside, yeah, but you can also just look around. The address is right where you're standing.
Just quickly, going back to this marriage thing, God brings these two souls together. The marriage is made. Is it the role of the two souls in a marriage to clean each other up? I mean, are we there to? Is that the purpose of this harmony? To fix your spouse's soul, or let them fix your soul?
When a couple is going to get married, we give them a blessing. We say that you should make a binyan adead, or you should build a bayit ne'eman, an eternal edifice. To build an eternal edifice, to build a holy home, takes three, not two. It takes you, your spouse, and God. That's the recipe. Did I successfully divert from your question? Meta. A Jew has free will in one area of his life, and that is his ethical and moral decisions. In that area, he can choose whatever he wants to choose. However, that does not preclude the Eibishter, does not preclude God from knowing what the outcome is going to be. Because God, of course, is perched beyond time and beyond space. So for him, the future is actually the present. But in no way does that diminish your ability to say yes, no, maybe. Eric.
One more question.
The tzaddikim what?
Symphony seats.
Do they have a sympathy?
Front row seat.
Yes, tzaddikim definitely have, they're in the pit. They're in the orchestra pit, excuse me. But they wish they were here. They wish they were here. Yes, Mark.
I've got one thing to add. I asked a friend of mine some years ago, how's married life? This is not marriage being a challenge. And he said, every day is like a Jewish holiday.
Like I said to everyone, I tell the jokes around here. Okay, I want to introduce. Okay. I'd like to introduce another voice. I'd like to introduce another source. Not a Kabbalist, not a Hasidic master, not the Rebbe, rather a Viennese psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl. Frankl was a Jew, a secular Jew, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, as you know. He lost his entire family, as you know, his parents, his brother, his pregnant wife. And after the war, From the Ashes, he wrote a book that I think all of us have on our bookshelf, Man's Search for Meaning. I suggest all of you take it off the bookshelf and read it again. It's 70 pages. It became one of the most influential psychological works of the 20th century. In it, Frankl makes the claim that should sound very, very familiar after the last 40 minutes. Look at source 11. Viktor Frankl says, mental health is based on a certain degree of tension, the tension between what one has already achieved and what one still ought to accomplish, or the gap between them, or the gap between what one is and what one should become. We should not then be hesitant about challenging man with a potential meaning for him to fulfill. There's much wisdom in the words of Nietzsche. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. In the Nazi concentration camps, those who knew that there was a task waiting for them to fulfill were the most apt to survive. I assure you that Viktor Frankl did not read the Arizal. He did not study Sha'ar HaGilgulim. He didn't get a letter from the Rebbe. Actually, I think he did get a letter from the Rebbe. I take that back. He sat in a concentration camp. He watched, he lived, and watched who would live and who would die. And what he learned from clinical observation, from the most extreme suffering a human being could possibly endure, is the same thing that Jewish mysticism had been teaching for hundreds and hundreds of years. That a human being without a sense of unique, irreplaceable mission collapses inward. And a human life with such a sense can endure anything. The Arizal says it in the language of soul sparks. The Rebbe said it in the language of unfinished mitzvot. The Rebbe Rashab said it in the language of providence and place. Frankl said it in the language of concentration camps. The vocabularies differ. The claim is the same. We are not here by accident, my friends. We're here for a reason. And the reason is hidden in plain sight, in the shape of your longings, in the shape of your struggles. In the shape of the life you find yourself already living. And there's an even older voice that says it best of all. From Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of Our Fathers, a 2,000-year-old teaching, source 10. Against your will you are formed, against your will you are born, against your will you live, against your will you die. Against your will you will be given an account before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. Against your will, you're formed. Against your will, you're born. Against your will, you live. Against your will. None of this was your idea. You did not pick your body. You didn't pick your family. You didn't pick the year of your birth. You didn't pick the country of your childhood or the language that you first cried in. And yet, here we are. All of it entrusted to you. Not yours by acquisition, yours by gift. And what is given is not yours to keep. It's yours to steward. Questions, comments? Mark?
Does that mean Pirkei Avot rejects free will?
I don't understand the correlation.
Against your will, from birth to death and beyond. You didn't choose it. It was against your will. What is that saying? They reject the idea of free will.
Free will is defined as, is relegated to those decisions of an ethical and moral nature. Those areas we clearly have free will about. The rest, I'm not so sure. Judaism says no. I want to leave you with a question. Not a question to answer now. Not a question to answer this week. A question to live with. Maybe for the rest of your life. If you let yourself believe, just for today, that your soul came down here for a specific reason, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Three weeks ago, we asked whether Judaism teaches reincarnation. Yes, it does. 2 weeks ago, we asked what exactly comes back. Sparks, carried by new souls looking for completion. Today, we ask the question, how do we know what is ours to do? The answer is in plain sight. In what we long for, in what trips us up, in marriage and work, the struggle we have stopped trying to fix because we have come to assume it. Maybe the Jewish mystical tradition tells us that thing is not something to live with. Maybe it's the address. So I'd like to just leave you with a blessing that we should have the wisdom to read what our lives are quietly asking of us, and the courage, when we recognize the address, to begin. Questions, comments, cucumbers? So before we wrap up, just a few thoughts on this week's Parsha. You know, sometimes you feel like reaching out to someone, and then you don't. Not because you decided against it, not because it doesn't matter, just that the moment passes. We've all had this experience. You tell yourself you'll come back to it later, when it feels right. But the timing never seems to arrive. And what once would have been simple all of a sudden feels very heavy. This week's Torah portion is the Parsha of Behalatecha, which means when you rise up, as Rabbi Solis said. It's in the book of Numbers, chapters 8 through 12. Tucked inside in chapter 9 is a little small episode that when you focus on it is pretty extraordinary. A group of people are unable to bring the Passover offering at its proper time. This is the second year in the desert. The first anniversary in the desert. They're not able to bring the Passover offering at the proper time, not because they were careless. They were actually carrying the bones of Joseph out of Egypt to bury them in Israel. And as a result, they were ritually impure. So when came the time for the Passover offering, they couldn't go into camp because they had to go through a process of ritual purification. They had an exemption. Off the record, if you had an exemption and you didn't have to celebrate Passover Seder for 6 hours and eat unlimited matzah and 4 glasses of wine, okay, never mind. These people were doing something holy, and as a result, Moses got an exception from God saying they do not have to participate. They get full credit like they were there, but they don't have to participate. But they still felt a loss. So they come to Moses complaining. We didn't want an exemption. We don't want to be deprived of celebrating Passover. So they're not asking to be let off the hook. They're asking for a way back in. So, as a result, God listens, and we see right in the Torah creates something new, a second Passover, Pesach Sheni, which to this day, 3,337 years later, we still celebrate 30 days after Passover every year. Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, a month later, is for anyone who missed the first. So the sages, the early sages, they note that this is one of the only times in the Torah where a new commandment comes into being because a person asked for it. Now, the obvious lesson here, the easy lesson, is that it's never too late. It's never too late. That's what we're trying to say here. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe pointed something much deeper. The second chance didn't appear on its own. It came into being because someone refused to accept that the chance was gone. Same doors, once closed, stay closed. The past doesn't rewind itself. But not every missed moment is a closed door. Sometimes it's only a door we have assumed is closed. Because opening it would ask something of us. So the question that we're left with is, what's the door that we've been telling ourselves is closed, that's still quietly waiting for us to ask, what's the way back in? And that's the lesson from Pesach Sheni. So I want to thank you. It's 1:02. We are in need, if I can ask humbly and assertively, we are in need of sponsors for the 2 coming weeks. We don't have sponsors. This is not a profit-making situation. Best case, we break even with the food. If anyone is in a position to sponsor or contribute to sponsoring or stuff some more of your shekels into the pushkas or in the electronic money taker, please feel free to do so. God bless you. Thank you very much. Sei gesund, sei matzliach.